All right, let's kick things off. Imagine you're in a boardroom. You're getting an executive briefing from a top-tier consulting firm. Your company's up against a huge challenge. This hidden enemy that's just eating away at your profits and your quality from the inside out. Well, that enemy has a name. It's variation. And today, we're going to break down exactly how to fight it.
And here it is. This is what we consultants call the answer up front. It's the single most important thing you need to take away from this entire briefing. Variation is the enemy. It's the root cause of both waste, like scrap materials, and errors, like product defects. Getting a handle on this, learning how to fight it, that's the real key to unlocking process excellence.
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to define the enemy. What is variation really? Then, we'll build the business case. Why should you even care? Third, we'll put on our detective hats and figure out where it's coming from. After that, we'll get into how to see it, how to fight it, and finally, what you need to know to truly master this stuff. It's a logical flow from understanding to action.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the enemy of quality. Look, in any battle, you can't beat an enemy you don't understand. So our very first step is to get a crystal clear definition of what we're actually up against.
It's a concept that sounds so simple, but it's also deeply profound. At its heart, variation is just a lack of consistency. It's the tiny differences between one product and the next one off the line, or one service call and the one that follows. It's that gap between what your process is supposed to do and what it actually delivers.
Let's make this real with a quick analogy, the screw factory. Your whole goal is to make identical, totally reliable screws, right? But variation means some are a bit too long, some are too short, and maybe some are just too weak. A screw that's too long, it won't fit. And one that's too weak, that could fail under pressure, and that could lead to something catastrophic. That inconsistency isn't just a small problem. It's a total product failure.
So variation means inconsistency. Got it. But why should the folks in the C-suite really care? Well, that brings us right to Section 2, making the business case. This is where we connect variation directly to the one thing every executive is obsessed with, the bottom line. It really just boils down to two big things. On one hand, you've got reliability, customer trust. Consistency is what builds a brand. It's the promise you make to everyone who buys your product. And then on the other hand, you have cold, hard cash. Every single piece of scrap, every minute spent on rework, every single error, that is money just leaking straight out of your business. Variation is a direct drain on your profits.
Now this slide here, this represents a huge shift in thinking. For decades, businesses just looked at averages to measure performance. But averages are so deceptive. They can completely hide the wild swings and inconsistencies happening in your process. The modern way, the Six Sigma way, is to measure the spread of the data. It shifts the question from what do we typically get to how reliable is our process? And let me tell you, that second question is way, way more powerful.
Okay, so we've established that variation is the disease. Now it's time for us to play doctor. In Section 3, we're going to diagnose the problem using a really powerful framework to pinpoint exactly where all this variation is coming from.
This is the 6M framework. It's a classic consulting tool because it's what we call MIS. That's mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. It guarantees that any source of variation you can think of will fit into one of these 6 buckets. So when you investigate, you just ask, is it our method, our manpower, our machines, our materials, our measurements, or is it Mother Nature? It gives you a complete checklist so absolutely nothing gets missed.
So, the 6 M's tell us where to look. But now we have to go a level deeper to understand what we're actually looking at. It turns out that all variation, no matter where it comes from, falls into one of 2 fundamental types. And getting this distinction right is everything, because as you're about to see, you have to treat them in completely different ways. And here they are. On the left, we have common cause variation. Think of this as the built-in, predictable background noise of your process. It's just the normal hum of the machine. But on the right, you've got special cause variation. This is not noise. This is a fire alarm going off. It's an unpredictable, one-off event, like getting a bad shipment of materials. One is expected. The other is an absolute emergency.
And this is exactly why getting that distinction right is the single most important diagnostic step you can take. I mean, think about it. If you treat normal background noise like it's a fire alarm, you're going to overreact and probably make things worse. And if you treat a real fire alarm like it's just background noise, well, you're going to fail to address a critical problem. Your diagnosis dictates your treatment.
So if the diagnosis is that critical, how do we actually get it right?
Well, we don't guess, we use data. In Section 4, we're going to look at the tools of the trade that let us actually see the variation, allowing us to separate that background noise from the fire alarms.
So our first tool is the run chart. This one's perfect for seeing common cause variation. It's simple. You just plot your data over time and draw a line right at the median. Then, you look for what we call runs, these clumps of consecutive points that are all on one side of that line. When you see these predictable patterns, you're literally looking at the visual signature of your system's built-in variation. It tells you your process is stable. But to spot that fire alarm, we need something a little more powerful. Enter the control chart. Here, we add upper and lower control limits. These are statistically calculated boundaries, usually 3 standard deviations out, that define the zone of normal expected variation. Think of them like fences. Any data point that jumps over the fence is the chart screaming at you, hey, something unpredictable just happened. That's your special cause.
All right, we've defined the enemy, we've diagnosed it, we've even visualized it. So what's next? Now it's time to fight back. In Section 5, we're going to build the counter playbook, turning our diagnosis into a concrete plan of action. So if your charts show a stable process that just has way too much background noise, too much common cause variation, the only way to fix it is to change the system itself. You're not fixing a one-time mistake, you are fundamentally improving the entire underlying process for the long haul.
Let's go back to our screw factory. Those constant humidity swings, that's a classic common cause. The playbook says we need a process change. So we introduce a new permanent step. Every day, we check the humidity and adjust the machine's settings to compensate. We fundamentally change the daily process to make it stronger.
But for a special cause, right? Where the process is usually humming along just fine until bam, something unexpected happens, you don't change the everyday process for that. Instead, you need a pre-planned contingency plan, sort of an in-case-of-emergency break glass procedure that you only pull out when that specific thing happens.
Think about that bad shipment of metal. It's a rare event, hopefully. Changing your whole process because of it would be a massive overreaction. Instead, you have a contingency plan ready to go. You inspect the shipment, and if it fails, your pre-planned protocol kicks in to reject it. This surgically removes the problem without messing up the efficiency of your day-to-day workflow.
Okay, we've covered the theory, we've covered the tactics. In our final section, let's get super practical. Because for a lot of you, mastering this isn't just about making a business better, it's about advancing your own career. So let's look at what the official certifying bodies expect you to know to prove you're an expert.
Think of this table as your personal cheat sheet for certification. And notice the progression here. Green belts are expected to identify patterns. But black belts, they're expected to lead complex major projects. That's why they need to master the deeper statistical tools, like multivariate analysis and the strategic side of statistical process control, or SPC. The core skill, though, at every single level is exactly the same: reducing variation.
And now, the final test. Here's a real question from an actual ASQ exam. A bottling company is overfilling its bottles just to be sure they meet the legal minimum, but it's really wasteful. They want to reduce that overfill. So what's the most effective strategy? Take a second. Think about everything we've talked about. What's the right first move?
The answer is D. And here is why this is so critical. If you just lower the target on a shaky, inconsistent process, you're going to start having illegal underfills. The right way, the only way, is a two-step move. Step 1, you absolutely must reduce the variation first. Make the process tight, predictable, reliable. Only then, once that's done, can you safely, in Step 2, lower the target volume to cut down on waste. And that is the ultimate takeaway from our entire briefing today. The crucial point is, and it always will be, control your variation first. That is the foundation for any meaningful improvement you ever want to make.